Hi, I'm Sheree Renée Thomas, and I'm here to talk about Black Panther, Panther's Rage on Forbidden Planet TV.
Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and it's my absolute privilege to welcome a returning guest, one of my favourite authors, Sheree Renée Thomas, right here. How are you, mate?
I'm great. So good to see you, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us again. And we've got so many great things to talk about as well, because so we've got three things on deck. One is your new Black Panther novel for my colleagues at Titan Books, Panther's Rage. Right there, the beautiful hardcover edition, which publishes on October the 11th and is available from the links attached to this conversation from forbiddenplanet.com. And then there's the paperback version of the anthology that you contributed to, edited by our mutual friend Jesse J. Holland, Black Panther Tales of Wakanda, also right there. That's published on November the 1st, also available from the links. And then there's your wonderful new well, I guess what's the right way to describe Africa? Is
An anthology.
An anthology.
Yeah, anthology. Yep.
Yeah. Which is essentially Africa Risen, a new era of speculative fiction, which is your anthology. That's a very personal project for you, and that publishes on November the 15th, and it is right there, and it is a tome and a half, isn't it, Sheree? Massive.
It is amazing. 32 stories, original stories from Africa and the African diaspora. I co-edited with Oghenechovwe, Ekpeki, and Zelda Knight. And we're so excited. Every story blew us away. It was such an experience editing it. And I do, I love short fiction. So
yeah. Actually, I since we're talking about that, I was gonna save that prize for last. But let's kick off by talking about Africa Risen. What was the genesis of it? Because this is an area anthology that you've been very busy in for a long period of time. So how did this particular collection come about?
Yeah, each of my co-editors are already doing wonderful editing of African science fiction and diaspora, actually, as well. Zelda and Oghenechovwe co-edited a collection called Dominion that they did. And for me, the collection Africa Risen was like a third dark matter, right? It was It was the book I would have edited, in 2000 if I had more relationships with African writers, Yeah. So we were thinking of it as a third dark matter, but as an opportunity to introduce not only like some already beloved African new writers, new to other audiences perhaps, but also some, emerging writers, as well. And to have those works be in one collection, I think is a lot of fun because you just get to go from place to place, imagination to imagination. They're all science fiction, fantasy, or horror. And it's characters, some of them you've never seen before. They're original ideals. They come from different African traditions and cultures and throughout the diaspora. So it's like my kind of thing. I love reading, science fiction. And so it was just like a dream project. So,
and for those of you watching this who aren't familiar with Sheree's anthology work as an editor, she has an impeccable pedigree, because the Dark Matter, which you've just mentioned, Sheree, and Dark Matter, and the sequel to Dark Matter, they won the 2001 and 2005 World Fantasy Award for Best Anthology, which is, I was amazed when I was just looking back on your prolific body of work. I was amazed to see that Dark Matter came out in 2000. Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
I started working on it in 98. I came up with the idea in 98 and, edited it, in 99, and it came out in 2000. And it's just, the stories, I feel so fortunate to be able to work with those writers. Some of them gone on to have amazing careers. For example, Nalo Hopkinson just won the Theodore Sturgeon Memorial Award for 2022 for her short story Broad Dirty Water, a sunken story from the magazine of fantasy and science fiction that I edit. So I'm like, I just to think, like, it's been 20 years. I've became familiar with her work when she first won the Warner Aspect Science Fiction Contest, first novel contest for Brown Girl in the Ring. And she's just been amazing ever since. And so just to be a witness to some really amazing writers just do great stuff, it's been very cool as an editor, right?
Yeah, I mean I think that's wonderful. Who have you got contributing to Africa Risen?
Oh my gosh, we have Tanana Reed-Dew and Stephen
She's brilliant.
Barnes,
Yeah.
Tobias Buckell, Russell Nichols, Danny and Daryl Jerry. We have Wole Talabi, just all kinds of amazing writers in here. Nuzo Ona, just, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like a who's who.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that's exactly how it sounds. Have you got any particular stories within the collection that I mean, I know no doubt they're all fantastic. You love all of them. You've got any that you'd pick out and go, oh, this is a really interesting one.
Oh my gosh, that's like asking
I know, right? Yeah.
A teacher to pick their favorite.
I know this is such a terribly unfair question.
But it just depends on what you're really into, right? Because like I said, there's a lot of different kinds of stories, but the ones that that kind of stood out for me, I definitely remember really being kind of just very drawn in and surprised by The Soul Would Have No Rainbow by Yvette Lisa Ndlovu, and it's just the storytelling and the way that it's written was just very interesting. One that I think is going to be very challenging and provocative, because we like those kinds of stories
of course too. Yeah right
is one Peeling Time Deluxe Edition, which I love music, so it has a music theme to it, but it's very disturbing. So I think that people are gonna be kind of amazed by that. And then there's just a lot of amazing, wonderful world building. Tobias Buckell does that so well in his own novels and stories. He's a World Fantasy Award winner among many other honors. And I just think like some of his fine writing comes through all the way through. I've always been fascinated by the Dogon people of Mali. And so if you're interested in a story that's kind of inspired by their wonderful cultural traditions and their stargazing work, then you would love The Star Watchers by Danny and Daryl Jerry. There is a writer, Wendy W.C. Dunlap, who has done a story that we actually had conversations about when we were editing and looking at stories. And because it's set in America, but it has such an interesting theme. In which I don't know, I feel like it was very visual when I read it. And so it's called March Magic. So I think that's something that people are going to be kind of excited about, but lots of great stories.
I mean, it really sounds wonderful. And Africa Risen, everybody watching this can order it from the links at the bottom of the conversation.
Robots, cyborgs, new gods.
all of that great
genetically
stuff.
Modify engineered people, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in 1000%. It sounds great. Sounds fantastic. And to go from one anthology you've been involved with to another, which you've been involved in as a writer. So as I mentioned, Black Panther, Tales of Wakanda, which you've got right behind you there. The paperback edition of that is publishing on November the 15th. Available for pre-order, edited by our mate Jesse J. Holland. But what can you tell me about your contribution to Tales of Wakanda?
I wrote a novelette called Heart of a Panther, and it takes T'Challa in a surprising place. He goes or returns to the Mississippi Delta because from the original comics arcs, he's been there before. But he comes to the Mississippi Delta for serious business for Wakanda that affects their entire future. And he learns quite a bit of new revelatory information that changes the way not only he sees himself, but he sees the kingdom as well and their history. So Yeah.
And I'm here. I've that's a bit of interview fakery, because I've read this story, of course, and I love it. So if you're a Black Panther fan, you're watching this, T'Challa fan, Wakanda fan, you've got to pick this collection up. It's amazing stuff, and your story is one of the standout moments in that book, mate. It's lovely. It's
Thank
lovely.
you so much. I really love the book. I'm like one of those writers that when you send me the PDF or you send me the ARC, I want to make sure that my name is spelled right.
Yeah,
if I can,
of course.
if I can, because it's sometimes mistakes happen, I understand. So, but so I look for that, but then I look to see the title page where the stories are. And then I go and read all the other stories because I know mine. So I want to know what else is in the book, what other stories are in there and what did they write about and how do I feel and all of that. So,
yeah, no, it's a great collection. It's a very strong lineup. It's a very strong piece of work, and then from one brilliant Black Panther publication, now you have your own novel, Black Panther, Panther's Rage. Now this is an adaptation, right, Sheree, of a storyline I know very well, because I bought those comic books and read them in real time. So you're adapting a classic comics arc by the great comics writer Dom McGregor, which appeared in there's a Marvel comic book in the early 70s. I know you know this, I'm just saying for the people watching this, a Marvel comic book in the early 70s, which took T'Challa away from being a supporting character in the Fantastic Four, put him front and center in his own book. That series is called Jungle Action. That's it right there. Oh, that's issue 5. And I can tell you this, that issue was written by Roy Thomas. And then issue 5 is written by Roy Thomas, and issue 6 onwards, 6 to 24, written by Dom McGregor, which is the Panther's Rage story. The great Dom McGregor.
Great Dom McGregor.
And that was on that cover that you just showed me. That was, there we go. Yeah, because there's Panther and Baku, right? Yeah.
Yes. Right
on. So what fascinates me about this is that Dom McGregor was way ahead of his time in terms of what he was doing in 72. So I would love to hear what your challenges were in adapting that story and how you came to be involved in the project in the first place.
Well, I'm a fan of the Black Panther.
I know you are, yeah.
And when I was growing up, it was the first Black superhero I ever heard of. I didn't know of any others. And so T'Challa was very important to me as a fan. And also, as you already know, I used to work in independent bookstores. I worked
I do.
At an independent bookstore here in Memphis called Gallery 350 at the time. And then I also, of course, worked at Forbidden Planet in New York, right?
Yeah, right on. Yeah.
So as a person who was not only, have a book publishing background and editing and a writer, but as a fan, being able to write the story for the anthology series was quite an honor. It's something I didn't even have on my bucket list as a dream. Like, it didn't even seem like I would ever be writing for the Black Panther. And then to be invited, I was asked to write an adaptation of Dom McGregor, Rich Buckley, and Billy Graham's legendary series. I was very, very moved and very astonished and excited. So I approached the project with a great deal of reverence, but also the desire to do the right thing and make sure that I was faithful to the original comics that we all know and love so well. And if you don't know, of course, we hope to encourage you to go and get the original comics and read them.
Because there are some beautiful collections right now, Sheree, of Panther's Rage.
Yeah, they have actually done reissues of, which we think of the original comics that came out in 1973 that Dom McGregor wrote. We think of them as the first graphic novel, right? That was created. And so being able to read those comics, Marvel gave me access to the world of Marvel, so I could go back and cross-reference and read. As a fans who are focused on the stories and comics, they already know that Christopher Priest created, Shuri, and Reginald Hutland created the Dora Milaje, right? And so those are wonderful innovations that added to the mythic universe of the Black Panther and Wakanda. But having to like take the original novel and then, you know, write a novel that incorporates the things that we also think of most dearly to Wakanda, that was an interesting challenge. Going back and looking at the old atlases and trying to figure out where everything is in relation to each other, because we're not using the Wakanda that you see in the movie, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're using the canon and exploring that.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. Of course, there's a wonderful atlas book that's now available to readers, as there is a terrific training guide to the Dora Milaje. There's a cookbook that Jesse also did, co-wrote. There's a lot of amazing things for us as fans to access, you know, but I always ask people, go back to those original comics. You're going to meet all of those villains that the Black Panther had to face, including the iconic Killmonger, right?
Yeah, right on.
That I love writing. Venom, who was probably my favorite of all the many foes that the T'Challa had to face. It's just it's an amazing arc. And so, but they're two different mediums, right? So a comic book is a comic book, and you have all the beautiful art. You have Don's wonderful prose, which is very unique and different from a lot of other comics. You can tell that he's a writer who loves story, who loves character, who loves language. You know,
yeah, for sure.
He loves
Dom McGregor was way ahead of his time when he was writing T'Challa, I think.
Absolutely, and it has influenced not only me but so many other writers and artists. So reading his work, thinking about what it means to tell stories. You know, I've, you know, written novelettes and a novella. I've written lots of short stories over my career and poems as well, but in essays and everything else. But a novel, that was a new challenge as well. And to create a novel from a story that has so many beats, right? That was also a very interesting thing. So I thank my editor, George Sanderson at Titan, who was really wonderful. And it just made the experience, made me feel like I could do it and do it well.
George is a great editor, actually. He's a very congenial guy, isn't he? You know, he's a very, he's a delight to work with. I've worked with him on a few projects.
And he's great with action. Yeah, so that was good.
So, Sheree, how much of the arc, how many of the books in the arc do you actually use as fuel for the novel?
I use 16. So it ends.
That's amazing.
It ends with
so you basically I think you must have used virtually everything from issue 6 to issue 24, right? Yeah, that's virtually the whole McGregor run.
Yeah, we stopped right before the next arc when, you know, he's off into the South and he's, you know, on a whole nother mission. It ends with him fighting off Killmonger and Madam.
Sure. Can I ask, how, as somebody who's been so steeped in comic books and popular culture throughout your life, and of course one of the things we talked about at length when we had our last chat was we're both big music fans, and music is a thing that I've always found indexes very, very specifically with comic book fans. You know, I think even more than movies and comic books, music and comic books is something that you almost never find a music fan, a comic book fan who isn't a big music fan at the same time. I'm setting this up for a reason, but actually what I was going to ask you is that as somebody who sat there working at Forbidden Planet, to then have the door opened at Marvel, to be able to have the door into Wakanda opened and to be, you know, given the keys to Wakanda, how did that feel?
Oh my gosh, it was very humbling. It really was. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying not to get emotional. As a fan, it was amazing. It was everything.
Yeah.
And they have like an encyclopedic memory and knowledge of all things of Black Panther, probably all the other Marvel universes. But I mean, I felt like I could, for example, when I was examining Monica Lynn, who of course is T'Challa's girlfriend in the original comics, they were, they remember every, scene that she appeared in, and she's a musician as well. She's in the original, she was an aspiring R&B singer. And so to be able to take her story, even though we know, what their journey together will be like, but to show that love in the face of a civil war that's happening in Wakanda, and after so many very serious losses that T'Challa has experienced, music is also a part of that background of the action and what happens, not only just from Monica, but just of Wakanda itself. So I got to play with that a little bit, and draw from the comics, those experiences, and put it in there in the book. So
I think that's wonderful. Do you have in your mind, do you have a playlist in your head that's associated with the book? Or when you think about it, do you have any particular performers or any particular pieces of music?
I do have music, and I did listen to different music when I was writing the book, and rereading and doing all the research and everything. I'm looking at interviews with the creators, the original creators. But it's so funny you say that. We are creating a wonderful playlist of original music for this novelization. So
this is exactly, well, I didn't know you do that, but this is exactly why I was asking.
I'm like, how did you know that?
I would love to be able to link your playlist to our conversation. If we can do that, let's talk about it after, when we're off camera, when we wind up, because I would love to do that. That's exactly where I was going. So great minds think alike.
You already know we were cooking up something wonderful. I mean, come on, like when the movie came out, we were so thrilled. Well, actually, before it came out, when we heard they were making the movie, lots and lots of fans around the world just cheered, because if you love Marvel, if you love the Marvel universe, if you remember seeing Blade in the theaters when it first came out, this is the ship, the lunch, all the journeys, right?
Yeah, right.
The Blade movies, particularly the original movie.
Yeah.
So to finally see these comics adapted, for audiences that may never have encountered them, who did not know the stories, that was it was amazing. And we wanted to create something that fans could enjoy in addition to the comics and some of the other things. So music, as you said, was always that's kind of this relationship that musicians and visual artists have, and comic book story writers and creators have. And so we're hoping that you're going to enjoy it. So
I think tapping into that, the musical joy of the many African cultures, I think, is such an interesting thing. It was a great thing. It's a great and fundamental part of the first movie, and I think just touching upon that, it's so rich. One thing that was very moving for me is when I was, and I'll see if I can express this properly, when I was talking to everybody about the creation of Tales of Wakanda. So I was talking to yourself and Jesse and Tanana of you, and and one of the questions I asked you guys was what your experience was of seeing Black Panther and what it meant to you, and there was a real emotional through line in what it meant to all of you, and I found that very moving, and just to transition from that. And the joy of that moment of sitting in that theatre with your friends and family and seeing that movie, to being fundamentally involved with that universe, that must feel amazing.
It was so amazing, and to feel the love in the audience. And I have to just say, in terms of movies, there have only been a few movies that I've gone to and people applauded, like as soon as the last, the fade to black happened and the credits start rolling. And two of those experiences have been with Marvel projects. One was one of the Marvel movies, and and people just, they stood up and applauded, like, and people just went nuts, right? And it's the one where the secret scene that comes out, was the show Magneto and Professor X playing.
Yeah.
Yes. And so well, not them playing together, but Magneto playing chess, right? I think it was in a park. and you know, the people who knew to stay there, it was obviously some people didn't know to stay at the time. They were just happy to be so still processing what they had just witnessed, that they were there and they saw the scene. We went crazy again. And the other time was with the Black Panther movie, which a lot of us were in costumes because it was a costume contest at the theater where I went to see it. And I went to see it with my family. I saw teachers who were there. I saw teachers that were there with their students. Comics are amazing way to show to help instill a love for learning and reading with young people because of the visual art that's so arresting and amazing, and the themes, you know, the classic, you know, heroic journeys that so many of them cover, and the way that people can connect to the characters. And you may feel powerless in your day-to-day life, right? But when you read a wonderfully written comic book, it gives you hope. It gives you the outlet for frustration. Sometimes we connect with the villains.
Of course.
But it also gives you access to the imagination, and humans, we need that. We need that in so much of our lives. So yeah, the going to see the Black Panther was amazing. I cannot wait to see the new movie Wakanda Forever. It's going to be such a different experience, of course, because Mr. Boseman will not be present. He will be present. He is present, of course, but we know that the actor that we know and loved, who did such an amazing job bringing T'Challa to the screen, it's going to be different. And we've had wonderful other people, of course, who've done the animated series, which I love as well. So there's so many ways that Black Panther fans can access the world of Wakanda. I'm looking at, there are board books for children, for little kids, YA novels, all kinds of amazing things. And so having Panther's Rage be yet another voice to add to that, I hope that people who love the comics and who are familiar with the comics can read it and see the care that I tried to show to adapt it well and to honor our favorite parts, the favorite parts of the series. And for those who maybe only know the movie, I hope that it encourages them to definitely go back and read the comics, because it is a real living legacy, you know, that's out here with us, and that so many people have admired and respected for so long. So
I think with this novel, you've truly honoured the power and the dignity of the character, the power and the dignity of Chadwick Boseman's impeccable performance, and the beautiful reality of what Wakanda is and what it represents to people's imaginations. And here when you're saying about the positivity of imagination and focusing on that, you know, we were talking off camera about, we live in dark and troubled times, right? But you know, everybody needs to focus on, you know, our shared humanity, and I think the world of Wakanda it resonates so powerfully on so many levels, not the least of which it's the connection between beauty and technology, you know, which I think is a marvelous thing, you know, and I think your distillation of all of that in Panther's Rage, while paying tremendous homage to the original comics as well, I think you've really pulled something very special off, mate.
thank you so much. Thank you.
And I just to slip back into Wakanda Forever, how much are you looking forward to it?
Oh my gosh. I've been picking out my outfits.
This is exactly what I was gonna ask you. If you had your outfit good to go.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. The first movie I was in, we were supposed to be there for the contest that happens before it turned on, and I was in line to get my souvenirs because I just had to have the giant T'Challa cup and all the things. So I'm in line to get the souvenirs, and one of the local news channels, I guess they did a sweep of the audience, right? Because I'm gonna say Memphis was dressed. We went back many times to see the film. I think we're probably the largest response to the films in the entire country, in terms of repeat viewings and things like that. And I found out later that they had me on camera in my costume. But that was before I even knew I would one day write, write in this amazing world. So I just feel like maybe I manifested it in some kind of way just by sheer fandom love.
Surely the only way. Well, I can't wait to see your Wakanda Forever outfit, and I can't wait to hear what your response to the movie is. I can't wait to see it myself, of course. But I mean, I think it's so wonderful that you're so intrinsically involved with Black Panther, with both Panther's Rage and with Tales of Wakanda, all available from the links here, and at the same time that your latest wonderful anthology, Africa Risen, is publishing as well. It's shaping up to be a very interesting and impactful fall for you, Sheree.
Yeah, it's been an amazing time. I will say that as a writer, what we love to do is we love to tell stories, and we love to tell stories and to have those stories be read. Otherwise, we just write them and leave them in our drawer, right? Or leave them in our drafts. But we really love to connect to readers. So I hope that the readers do enjoy this. This is a novel. It is not a comic book. It is an adaptation of the comic book. But there are lots of wonderful editions of not only the original comics, but of the reissues as graphic novels.
The epic collection.
Hardcovers, beautiful hardcovers editions. I think there's a special new edition as well that Dom McGregor and Marvel have put together that you can check out. But I don't know, I've got a chance not only to work with some amazing people, working with people like Jesse on the anthology, and working with my editor and the wonderful writers of Africa Risen, but also I got a chance to work with Janelle Monáe on their debut science fiction collection. We collaborated on a story called Time Box Altered, which was a New York Times bestselling.
Right on, yeah. and you've got the plaque to prove it right behind it. Yeah.
So it's been, as a writer, it has been an extremely rewarding, amazing year. Every new year, I do a silent meditation to myself, and just hope a few experiences I hope to have, or people I hope to see, especially if they're friends I haven't seen in a long time. With the pandemic, we were away from each other so very long,
Yeah, of course.
So going to Worldcon has been amazing because I got to meet people I only knew in correspondence, and to meet new people I would never have seen before, and just to witness some wonderful moments. And last year when I did my meditation, it's just a kind of things that you hope for in the new year, if you survive to experience the new year. These were things that the child me who loved the Black Panther, who, I didn't have the imagination of that, so I didn't have that. So now this year, I don't know what I'm going to put out there, but I do hope that we get to meet in person, if not in Memphis and in Liverpool. That would be amazing.
Well, I would, as you know, Sheree, I would love that. Memphis, as you know, is one of my favorite cities in the US, and if I don't get out to Memphis, I'll show you around Liverpool, because you'd love it. Another great music city, of course, very different to Memphis, but we'll meet up in one of those places, I am sure, during the course of the next year. There is no doubt.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for joining me and talking about these 3 wonderful books, publishing at this wonderful time, at a great period of time for Wakanda and for Black Panther. And that, once again, is Panther's Rage, Tales of Wakanda, and Africa Risen, all either edited or written by the great Sheree Renée Thomas, right here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thanks so much for joining me, mate. It's really always great to see you.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV, and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.